A lot of people call Pirates the best pirate game ever made. And since the game is 18 years old, it must have something that keeps people coming back. And when you're on the high seas, raiding ships for loot and food, stopping inland only to pick up more crew and hear whispers of notorious pirates' movements, you really feel something that hasn't been properly captured since. There's just one issue. This game was released in 2004, and in my mind 2004 was the year of Rome Total War and Half-Life 2, so I thought PC gaming had gotten pretty modern by then. But 16:9 wasn't the dominant aspect ratio for games yet, and Pirates doesn't support it. There's not even a foolproof way to get it working either. There is a fan patch that lets you have a stretch 16:9 with mouse support, or another mode with true 16:9 and no mouse. For this review, I'm using the mouse support one, as well as a HD fan patch to smooth out some character models a bit, and I think the game actually looks pretty nice this way. Both mods were easy to install, just dragging files around, so you should have no trouble with them. This game is more or less open-ended gameplay, but the setup for the story is pretty straightforward. You're a young lad from a well-to-do merchant family who, after losing a shipment of valuable cargo, have their debts called in by the evil Marquis de Montalban. This game doesn't have voiceover, so I've only ever seen it written down. Anyway, he takes your family and ships them off to the New World. You, however, run off and escape their fate. 10 years later, you go to the bar, and after signing on to a crew from Spain, England, France, or the Netherlands, you're shipped off to the New World yourself. When you're in the New World, you work hard on the ship until eventually the crew mutinies and elects you captain. Once that happens, you'll get a basic ship, a small crew, and a letter from your chosen nation saying you can raid the ships of their enemies. And then you're free to do whatever you want. The game is ridiculously open-ended like that. So after you're dropped in the New World, your only real objective is to find your family and get revenge, though honestly the game doesn't make you do that. You can fight and rank your way up the navy of your chosen nation, gaining land, money, and a wife. Or you can be a free pirate, working out of the pirate havens while you attack every nation whenever you see a treasure fleet trying to bring gold back to Europe. Or you can become a pirate hunter, looking at the list of top 10 pirates in the Caribbean and ruthlessly tracking them all down to steal their place. When I was young, I got this game on PSP when I was on holidays, I think, and I spent countless hours replaying it over the years. The gameplay is so simple, yet engaging and open-ended. I genuinely love it. Regardless of your playstyle though, a solid portion of this game is sailing. All campaigns will start you with a small sloop with only a few guns and a few men. Though since you're a pirate, literally from the get-go, any ship you see, if you can take it over, it's yours. So quickly enough, you'll have big galleons carrying 300 men and dozens of cannons, even unlocking chain shot and grape shot to take out enemy sails or their men. By and large, ship combat is 1v1, so no matter how many ships you own, you'll only take the flagship into combat, meaning the rest of your fleet is just used to store loot. The combat itself is real time and it's generally very basic, just take out the enemy ship before they take you out. You can do this by damaging them until they surrender, though that risks sinking their ship and their loot with it. So instead, you can board the ship and face the enemy captain in a dueling minigame if you can get close enough to them. I'll loop back around to the minigames later, but it is pretty fun. It's simple but can be punishing when it wants to be. Depending on upgrades you've gotten in ports, you can get better cannons, faster turning speeds, or all the cannon modes I mentioned earlier. In my many years of playing the game, I've never gotten tired of the combat. There's just enough variables and risk to every battle that you always have something to gain or lose. Even the smallest ship can catch you out in combat if you make some bad turns and get caught out by the changing winds. Whenever you win a battle, you'll get a screen showing you how much gold you've stolen from the enemy, what loot you can take from them, and then whether you want to keep their ship or sink it. Once you've gained a ship or just its cargo, you're probably going to visit a port to sell any goods you stole and take on fresh food at the market. There is a basic economy going on with items in the game, meaning you can buy spices in one town and sell them somewhere who'll buy for a higher price. Though honestly, I feel it's against the spirit of piracy to do this. I want to get all my goods through plundering random merchants instead of being the merchant myself. Anyway, while you're in town, you can hit up the shipmaker for repairs, to sell ships you don't want anymore, and maybe to buy an upgrade. Each town will only sell you one upgrade, with there only being around 7 in total, so you won't be able to fully kit out a ship as soon as you get it. In general, these upgrades are very basic, like faster movement speed or having more crew allowed per ship. though you can also find specialist crew aboard enemy ships which will give you similar upgrades like faster cannon reloads. While you're in town, you can also visit the tavern for gossip and take on new crew, or visit the governor to see if there's work to be done or even promotions available. It's worth mentioning that time flows in this game, so when you start, you're a fresh-faced 18-year-old, but as the months go by, you'll age, start to look older, and eventually start losing stats in dueling, kinda like in Mount & Blade. You can only be out at sea for a few months at a time before your crew gets upset and starts to desert, or worst case, throws a mutiny. If you're taking in enough money, they'll shut up, though eventually you'll probably have to split your plunder and take a break for a few months. This is when the game lets you change the difficulty, though you can also just retire on the screen if you're happy with your progress. And if you're over 40, you may be forced to retire. To my knowledge, this is the only way to get a real game over in Pirates, though I am getting ahead of myself because there's still a ton of content to talk about. Questing in this game is by and large simple. Someone has something you want and was last seen somewhere over there, or we want to send a declaration of war, escort it to the enemy's port for us. Basically, these are just excuses to do some sailing and fighting, though the reward for questing and sinking enemy ships in general are promotions for the nations you helped. Promotions give basic perks like cheaper repairs and upgrades, as well as stuff for retirement like land. More importantly though, a governor may introduce you to his daughter, unlocking yet more minigames. So after sailing and ship combat, minigames are going to be most of what you get up to in this game. I mentioned dueling already, which is pretty fun. Basically, you have low, middle and high attacks, with the same for defense. Depending on your difficulty and your opponent, you'll get huge telegraphed attacks that are easy to deal with, all the way to near instant hits. Genuinely, trying to fight the best duelist in this game early on was near impossible for me. His attacks were just too fast for me to react to. But through sailing, fighting and flirting, I found better equipment which gave just basic upgrades to my attack and dodging, but it was enough with some practice to take on some of the best duelists in the game. I swear though, the amount of training I needed to do for the final boss was ridiculous. Other minigames include dancing, which is just a basic rhythm game where your partner points in a direction and you hit the right key in time, as well as the biggest feature I've yet to talk about. So obviously, being a pirate, you'll eventually try and find some goddamn buried treasure. Beating certain pirates or bribing shady men in back corners of taverns will give you parts of maps, and as you piece them together, you'll be able to figure out which port you should go near. And once you go on land, you'll be able to reference landmarks until you find the treasure. Similar to this, beating certain big evil captains will help you find where your family are, because this is a game about finding your family, if you forgot. Beyond it being your character's entire motivation, there's nothing crazy about finding them beyond a cool cutscene and I guess the best ending for the game. Finally, the game has entire lost cities you can try to find if you want a true completionist experience, though there is one last minigame I haven't mentioned. If you hate a nation and would rather a certain town be owned by one of your friends, you can land beside it and invade. This starts a simple turn-based board game, and if you take over the town, you'll get loot and can give it to an ally. I'd love to compliment it more, but this actually gets me onto the complaints part of this video. I love this game. It's more in-depth than a lot of games I like, and it's got a certain way of keeping things fresh, mixed in with a modding scene that's way more active than I would have expected. The issue is, games have come a long way in the last 20 years. Seeing all these cool features just leaves me wanting more from the game at points. Like, I'd love to be able to take over a town for myself, establishing a pirate haven and maybe even have my own allied pirate fleets off raiding in the background. Similarly, while I love the combat, it would be amazing to get finer control over the ships and maybe get to upgrade them in finer detail. I tend to say that if a game leaves me wanting more of it, then it's probably still a good game. And in Pirate's case, it is, believe me. I've played other pirate games, like Black Wake before it died, Guns of Icarus if steampunk counts, and of course Sea of Thieves. And while I'll admit the chaos of trying to board an enemy ship while cannonballs are flying past your head is incredible, I just haven't found a game like Pirates since I first played it all those years ago. So if you're looking for a game that can run on pretty much any system, that has a lot of depth but you don't need to look up tutorials online to get into it, and one that you can replay or stop at pretty much any time, I'd recommend Pirates. My goal is to get out at least 10 videos this year, so as always, if you find a game you think I'd like, let me know. I've got a spreadsheet thing going, though I've kind of ignored it for the last few videos. Otherwise, I hope you all have a good year, and I'm looking forward to bringing you more random games to talk about.